everybody. My name is Andrew White, and I'm the founder and CEO of Transcend Space, and I'm here with Andy. Andy, over to you.
And I'm Andy Rumbles. I'm the founder of Art Consulting, and I have the privilege of being a partner in Transcend Space alongside Andrew.
So, as you know, this series is all about thresholds. And to date, we have spoken about stories, case studies that we've seen.
Yeah.
I want to introduce something a bit different here, which is like thinking around what is on the other side of the threshold. As a bit of background, if I may, the two of us have been involved in 2 executive retreats in the last month or so. And we've been helping organizations figure this out. We can't talk about them, but we can talk about some of the things we've explored. I also went to a CEO retreat on Richard Branson's island. And one of the things I took there was almost what is on the other side of the threshold for me, and what do I dream into? And we're also going through the structural edit of our book. And so all of this led me to think, how do we describe what's on the other side of the threshold? And I came up with this idea of the pinnacle. And what do I mean by the pinnacle? It's kind of, given where you are, what's the very, very best you could be in terms of impact? Now, some caveats around that, right? It's always going to be impermanent. So it's always going to be in a state of evolution. So what's the pinnacle today might not be the pinnacle in 6 months. It can't just be an ego play. So it can't just be, well, my business is 1 million, I want to make it 20 million. It's also got to be about service and your vocation. And it can't burn you out, right? So it's got to be about how do you flourish and how do you get some renewal? And you can't burn the world out, so it can't be extractive. But I still think there's something about how do you be the very best that you can be? What is the pinnacle of your work? So anyway, that's the topic, my friend. And let's go. What do you think?
Yeah, you started using this term the other day, and I was sort of fascinated by it. And my first gut reaction was, when you think about pinnacles, usually that's like a high point in a journey, and then you descend from there. And and that's why I love when you talk about impermanence. And I think for me, conceptually, the pinnacle isn't where you stop. It's the vantage point where you start seeing things properly. It's like when you start to see things clearly, and in many ways, the criteria, language like impermanence may not necessarily always resonate. But if you think about things like the thing that made you great yesterday might be holding you back today, concepts like this fall from the idea of a pinnacle. And it means that it's kind of forcing you never to get too comfortable with the status quo. You have to start to examine not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. And are the things that you are holding on to that have made you so successful in the future may not be the things that serve you in it going forward. But it also forces you to examine why you're doing it. So, if I give an example of working with a sovereign AI company that small number of people, growing rapidly, billions in order books, clear what they're trying to do from a technical perspective, but not really sure why they're doing it. And the result of that is, as you say, people become depleted and burn out because they're running around. So I think this notion of a pinnacle as a vantage point, as a point of clarity that isn't an achievement in itself, but is a moment of self-awareness about how am I showing up, but what does it really take to get to the next level or the highest potential that I can achieve within my understanding, because when I get there, it will move again.
Yes.
It's another vantage point, another vantage point. I think that it is an invective or a call to arms to us to never to really just sit within our assumptions and our beliefs and to keep challenging, because otherwise you get very quickly into, as organizations do, I want to hit the performance target I set 2 years ago. That's the target that matters. And it's not. It's actually, what am I being called to do? What am I uniquely able to do? And how do I have that greatest impact in the world? So I love this concept of a pinnacle as a point of clarity and an invective and a call to action to challenge yourself.
Yeah. And so what you're saying is we can't grab hold of it too tightly.
No.
It's about where we are now. It's a call to expansiveness.
Yeah.
I'm going to put something really concrete and I'm going to ask you a question, right?
Oh, gosh.
It's going to put you on the spot. Right?
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah. So you and I, on
Yeah.
the 17th, I think, of November this year, are going to have a book published
Yeah.
on leadership thresholds.
Yeah.
For you, given where you are now, what would be the pinnacle that book could take you to?
I think for me, the book is about the work that we are called to do. The
Yeah.
book is about creating a vehicle for us to have a map, a narrative, and a conversation with leaders about, as I was saying to you the other day, there's the funny thing about thresholds is it's the reason people don't cross them isn't because they're bright. Like there are so many hugely intellectual people who are probably brighter than us that are struggling to get across this thing. So it's not a case of they need more intellectual horsepower or anything like this. They need a framework, a means, a way of having a conversation. And I believe, and on a retreat with you, I came up that my purpose is to give people a gift of another path.
Yeah.
And I think Threshold sits right at the heart and center of that purpose. So the book for me coming out will hopefully allow me to spend not all of my time because I have a family and I have but where I spend the majority of my time is in my purpose and my gift. It will provide me with access, with a narrative, with a conversation starter, with hopefully we'll build a bit of a community and tribe around this, both through your platform, but just through the people we engage and we meet. That means I can spend more time in my purpose, in my gift to this world.
Yeah. That's a pinnacle. That's what we mean. So that's super interesting. Yeah. And so that's not about you burning out.
Nope.
It's not about selling a million copies. It's about service. It's about vocation. It's about what you feel called to do in the world. I would say it's what you're really, really good at. I've seen you do it. And so there's something unifying here.
Yeah.
There's something focusing. There's a platform for something, and it's not disconnected from your past. It's kind of it brings a lot of threads, but to a bigger place, a more expansive place, a more impactful space.
You know what I'm going to ask next, though, right? Because now I'm
Go
going
on,
to.
I know, yeah. I know.
You can't, I never let this go. If you set me up, right, this is what's going to happen in return. So you've got to give your version of what is the pinnacle for the book for you.
Yeah. So the way I see it is that it's going to create like a wave of energy.
Ah, interesting.
And I think for me, it does all the things that you've talked about. It brings together a lot. I've been working on this, cooking this, developing this. There's something of me deeply in this book. And I think it brings my purpose to life. I help people cross thresholds. I think it's going to help me understand what's the vehicle I use to do that. And so it could go down two paths. That wave could really lift and help grow the global leadership community that we're launching. I think that's one very definite outcome I believe it will do. And the second is lift and build the global coaching and consulting business that we run. So impacting more people, making more things happen. I think if I really dream into it, right now, I think the world is facing some big thresholds, right? AI, climate, the future of work. And how do we cross those successfully? And so my biggest hope, the biggest pinnacle, is that we will give a language to something that is facing societies, and we will start to really decode that. Now, our book doesn't go into that. Our colleague Mac is in that space, right? And I think there is a real need to understand that. But so there's a level 1, which is me, there's a level 2, which is almost like the platforms that it could create, and there's a level 3, which is really stretching into the unknown. And could we make a contribution to that? And I know we've got some opportunities which we're going to be talking about later today, which are in that space.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you said just not to go down the rabbit hole or be too self-referential, but as you were talking before you mentioned Mac, I was thinking of Mac, and I was thinking about how the concept of systems thinking and systems engineering gave a language and a narrative and a structure through spiral development that allows people to completely reframe problems.
Yeah.
And I think it's the Singaporean government teaches all of their senior civil servants and politicians systems thinking to be able to solve what's essentially wicked problems and overlapping problems. So just giving a narrative and a map to the world has allowed people to solve problems in a very different way. And I think that's a beautiful analogy. And maybe it's an egotistical hope that it could ever get to that level. Yeah. But it is something that, again, would be a huge, if I could leave this world having given people alongside you a map for how to cross thresholds and it made difference and impact, I think that would be a hell of a legacy.
Yeah. Let me bring it back down a bit more to the here and now. We've worked with 2 organisations. We can't talk about them and we can't talk about huge details in their business. But I think in both of them, those cases, there was a real sense that there was a pinnacle. With one of them, there was a calling that was made by a new member of their board, that if they came together in a different way, they could go after a piece of business that would be a pinnacle for them. It had service in it, it had impact, it basically had huge growth that they were being expected to go after, and it was a massive threshold. With another, there was a sense that they could significantly grow, but in order to do that, they needed to address some of the problems they had in the way they were working at the moment and the way that they were letting down some of their customers. If they could solve that, if they could take that recipe, they were in a market and in a society which really needs what they do. And I think both of those, if that company could get to the doubling of activity, whilst giving customers what they were looking for, and building communities as they were doing that, there was a pinnacle there. There were 2 pinnacles. And I think that language starts to work, and it starts to bring in a sense, the caveats that we talked about alive as well, because it's not just growth for the sake of growth. It's growth with a purpose. It's growth under certain conditions that we outlined at the beginning.
And I think that last one's really interesting, because fundamentally that organization was well run. There was day to day, they weren't in an existential crisis. They weren't facing into, it's make or break. You could argue that they were kind of growth ready in many areas. But, I think you've said something akin to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but something like growth without renewal leads to depletion. You have to renew yourself, otherwise the energy depletes. And I think with them, there was, we often say that, and you're particularly, comes very strongly through from you, often the conversations that you're not having are the ones that, and you need to have, are the ones that are the most important conversations. And that to me was an example of an organization that was trying to grow, but it hadn't really renewed itself. It hadn't really looked within and said, what do we need to examine about ourselves so that everybody's showing up as their best self, as they're able to kind of perform within their roles, but perform as a collective. And they'd seen a performance potential, but they hadn't seen the pinnacle of who they could become as a collective leadership team, as an organization.
Yeah.
And they were accepting certain, actually what were often legacy cultural issues from before that team even existed. It was almost like the definition of a meme in the true sense before it became about emojis and everything. Originally, it was the definition, a meme was like a gene. How do you have cultural transmission? This was like the manifestation of a meme, of a cultural transmission. And because they hadn't examined it, they could see a path to a target, but they couldn't see the pinnacle of who they could become.
Yeah.
And I think that is the work that we did with them, to put on the table what is it that they are really being called forward towards, and what is it that they are not saying that needs to be said to allow them to do that. And that released not just a catharsis, but a renewal. And afterwards, people were saying, going back to the point, I'm re-examining things that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'm re-examining. You've given me a reason and a powerful call to action to go back and challenge my own assumptions and how I'm showing up and how I'm working with my own colleagues, rather than assuming they're the problem.
Yeah, and I think in all of that, there was a shift that we gave them some language for, which seemed to really resonate. Are we playing not to lose?
Yes.
Or are we playing to win? And I think in that shift from playing not to lose, you intentionally, you say small. It's an inward energy. It's we're worried about compliance. We're worried about risk. And all those things are really, really important. But the pinnacle invites the playing to win. Who won't we be? And I would say also it brings in like confidence and belief. Like if we're doing something good, if we're doing something the world needs, like you and I believe the world will be a better place because of our book. We're not going to solve all the world's problems. We're not. Let's not get into utopian territory. But on a net basis, this is going to make lives better, happier, healthier, easier. Businesses perform better, etc., etc. Now, why would we want to stay small with that? Why would we say we only want that to touch 500 people when it could touch 5,000? Why would that company want to stay small with what it's doing when if it's giving people a really great experience, why not double it? Now, if it tripled it, it might stretch that too far, and it might start to address issues of sustainability or address issues of burnout and all of these types of things. So that language of playing not to lose or playing to win, I think is a really important shift here as well.
Yeah, and I also think the interesting thing as we talk about it, play to win in a pinnacle sense, is play to win could be misconstrued as in relation to other people, as opposed to playing to win it's almost like, what could we possibly achieve? It's not to be 10% better than the competition or 5% better than the competition. It's about, why are we allowing that to dictate our measure of success? What is it that we wish to achieve? What do we wish to accomplish? And winning is not relative to others. It is about reaching our highest potential, our highest performance, and taking away the limiting beliefs that we're only assessed as good or bad in relation to what a competitor is doing or what a particular stakeholder might be saying. Yes, they have to be brought on board on the journey because you're solving for a multi-stakeholder world, but fundamentally, you are striving to reach your ultimate potential.
Yeah. So I think the other thing that comes to mind, just as we're talking, is that, for a long time I've talked about this mountain to mountain.
Yeah. Yep.
And still use it. I need to get my map that I use redone because the topics that are driving change have changed over the last few years. But what we're talking about is the second mountain. And the second mountain isn't about achievement for the sake of achievement. It's about achievement with purpose. It doesn't burn people out. It's recognizing impermanence, that things are emergent and evolving. But it still has that thing. We are leaders and we're here to make impact. We're leaders and we're here to execute and we're here to grow something. So it's brought that metaphor, that picture I think for me, it's given a bit of renewal to it.
And convenient that it's called Pinnacle as well, right? So
Convenient, yeah. But it's not mountaintop. It's kind of it's got a pinnacle's more. Yeah, it gives more space. So, we've done 20 minutes. Let's do another few.
Okay.
If you're a leader, what questions should you be asking yourself if you want to use the language of Pinnacle and bring it into conversation?
I'm just trying to think through your different lenses of like impermanence and service, because I think I'm just trying to think through in my head how I would frame that. I think so. I'll answer it, but I'll try not to be too long-winded. But so I did some work with an online pure play retailer. You know, if you took their maths, they would get to 3 times the size of their business would grow 3x in 5 years. Incredible growth. But it would never have been achieved by doing more of the same. They had to fundamentally re-examine what they were doing. Like, it's almost like the crab. To grow, it has to let go of its shell, its main defense, to be able to grow, and then it reforms a new shell, right? So I guess the first question is what are the things that made you great yesterday that hold you back for tomorrow? So I would probably start from there. Like, what are the sort of the limiting beliefs and assumptions that you hold on to that may not be in service of the future? I think, and more importantly, what you could become. I think the second question is what's the difference in your mind between being good at your job and doing the work that's yours to do? So where are you doing things because you're competent at it versus what are you in service of and calling towards? Because I think a lot of companies are doing things they are good at, but not necessarily what they're uniquely placed to do. And what could they become? And the same with this true of individuals as well as leaders. And then I would say you can't build on what you haven't examined. So where are you getting most energy? Where are you at your best? And how do you start to look at where you do more of that and less of the things that deplete them, or deplete you, I should say. So I think those would be my 3 starter strawman questions. I realise starter for 10 is a British idiom, but those are my 3 sort of strawman questions. But Andrew, please, I'd love to. You've probably got some better ones, but I would love to hear your view.
I think it's all in that territory, Andy. I think there's something about letting go of the way you currently do things. For 2 reasons. One is there's going to be things that are temporary in there that have worked to this point you're going to have to let go of. There's going to be things that are dysfunctional in there that you're going to have to transform. But I think particularly with any established large organization, they were doing something right. There's something really, really good. If you look at the FTSE 100 or the S&P 500, they're doing something right. They're bringing something to the world. So how do we get down to the essence of that? And how do we magnify that? How do we see what the maximum of that could be? And I think in that process, it is both deeply strategic and it's deeply human. And that's what we saw in those 2 cases of those 2 executive teams we've worked with. You couldn't turn it just into a deck of slides, although a deck of slides was important. And you couldn't just make it a purely human experience, although that was important. It was about the marrying of those 2 things. And that's really where the Pinnacle process, I think, has got to play out. And it's stretching that. So it's not a goal for the sake of a goal. It's a goal that actually comes deeply from what that organization is really good at its best, in terms of service. It's best in terms of growth. It unites those words, profit and purpose, into something, I think, which is more unifying.
Yeah. And I guess if I was thinking, if I start thinking about where people have really achieved performance in an organization that was beyond just the usual target setting, you know, the ones where they are reaching for that highest thing, it's where I guess people are achieving a combination of two things. Like people are able to be fully honestly themselves every day at work, and then they're doing things that actually matter to them. And if you can find those two together as a leader in yourself, but also in the people around you, then when those two things align, typically results tend to take care of themselves. So I think it's like what is, and again, that is a human process, but what matters has a strategic element to it. So I think it's definitely, and this is why one of the reasons we wrote the book, one of the many reasons we wrote the book, you can't solve this from just an inner perspective or an outer perspective. You have to marry the two. And then marriage, as you say, is the pinnacle.
Yeah. So 2 books, if people are really interested in this. I'm just going to try and find, I've got them knocking around in my office. So one of them, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I think he describes a really interesting shift from the zone of excellence to the zone of genius. I think that is one contribution to this process. And then the other one, which I've just recently read, Unreasonable Success and How to Achieve It. He talks about something in here called Olympian expectations. And so if you think about the Olympics, it's people who are at the absolute top of their game in different disciplines. So that's not just in one discipline. And so how can you bring that Olympian expectation to whatever business you're in? So what does it mean to be the very best if you're in the mining industry, or if you're in the retail industry, or if you're in, and with all the things that we've spoken about, and, you know, a super book. And both of them, I think, start to paint the picture of what this means.
It's funny, one of my friends actually won a gold medal at the Olympics in rowing. So
okay,
maybe we should have a guest at some point.
Maybe we should,
maybe invite him in to say, what does it really take to be the top of the pile at the Olympics? Because I've heard the story and it's fascinating.
I suspect a huge amount of sacrifice.
Yeah, it's actually the amount of level in the detail. It's all in the detail, and it's all, and it's importantly, it's all in behaviours.
Yeah, excellent, Andy. Thank you. Really, really interesting. Another great insight. I suspect this one will run. Now, I think we're also not totally wedded to the word pinnacle. It's a kind of working title at the moment. It's holding our exploration, and we'll come back to you, our audience, with any views. What we'd also say is we'd love your views on this. So we haven't cracked this. So if you can think of a different word that opens up a different conversation, please put it in the comments. Because we'd love to play with that word on another episode.
And if you get it in fast enough, it might make it into the book. Let's just say
it might. Very quickly, yeah.
Exactly.
Or the second edition.
Exactly.
Okay,
Thank
take
you,
care.
Andrew.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.